Hey there, Lisa here. Welcome to my channel. I hope you'll join me in my love of crafting and DIYs and hit that subscribe button. Today's video is part of a really fun collaboration that I will tell you more about in just a little bit, but let's jump right in and get busy. For this project, we are going to make a little mini window. You will need 6 frames, craft sticks, fake flowers, mini bottles, twine, hot glue gun, wire cutters, antique wax, and a paintbrush. So the first thing I did was dismantle my frames, as we are just after the outer edge of the frame. And then I took out the prongs because you could see them no matter which way you bent them. And then I went and hot glued all of my frames together. And I was only going to do 4, and I ended up wanting it bigger. So as you'll see here, I did the 4, and then I went ahead and I used popsicle sticks. I guess they call them craft sticks, in 2 different sizes, but whatever you have on hand, just to glue to the back to make it more secure. And so I went around and did that, and I put these bigger ones in the middle, and if they didn't fit, I would just sort of break them in half and stick them where they did fit. See there, I am using just a half. And then this is where I decided that I really wanted 6 panes. And so I just glued on 2 more frames. And then I did the same thing with the popsicle sticks, just putting it over the edges there where they connect to make sure that it was good and secure. And then I took antique wax and a brush and just gave it a good coat of the antique wax. I didn't want it super dark, so then I would go back over with a paper towel just to sort of take just a little bit off, because I still wanted to really be able to see the grains in the wood. And then once that had all dried, I took my little bottles and I tied twine around them, but first I put a dab of glue and then knotted it. And then I took and gave it another knot, just to make sure it was on there and secure. And then I take and I tie it over the frame. First I glued it down, and then I knotted it, and then I glued the excess and then cut it off. But for some reason the footage was off, so you can't see that. And then I took my florals and cut them down to the size I wanted and put them in the bottle, and they were a lot heavier than these tiny little bottles, so I did end up having to secure it with a little bit of hot glue. So I just secured the florals to the twine there, and I ended up putting 3 in the middle and 2 on each end. And then when I got it up on my mantle, I wasn't loving it, so I actually took some out, and just went with more simple, but unfortunately I did not think to record that. So here it is. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Also weigh in, yellow or white tulips. I'm still really torn. I ended up using white for the reveal photos, but I'm not so sure I won't go back to yellow. This project is a spring wreath, and for this you will need fake florals of your choice, a small wire wreath, burlap ribbon, hot glue gun, and wire cutters. I have been dreaming up this wreath forever. First I went and I cut and made bunches and used floral tape. You'll notice floral tape is not on my list of supplies, nor is floral wire, which I then tried to wire it on. And this is the point at which I was like, this is not what I want it to look like. So I cut it all apart. And here I am after it's all cut apart, and I cut them a little bit shorter, and I did smaller bunches. Same idea. And this is me sitting on the floor with my toddler putting my smaller bunches together, and I went and wired those on, and once again I just was not liking the look of it. So here's what I did. I got the hot glue gun, and I took my burlap ribbon and I hot glued it onto the wire wreath, and then I rolled up the end there. And so here I just went ahead and wrapped the entire wreath. And once I had it wrapped the way I wanted, I cut off any excess. And then I took and folded that up and then secured it to itself with the hot glue. My cut picks, the little ones, and I just started sticking them in the ribbon. I initially tried it with the bunches and I didn't like that, so I took them completely apart and went one at a time. This is what my little guy was doing while I did that. So I went every other one to start out, so I'd do about 3 in each, and then I would go every other one, so every other ribbon there. And then I went back, see, I'm showing you that I went back and did the ones in between as well. I don't know why I did it that way. I only had so much flowers, so I was kind of trying to make sure that I could have enough, or I would have enough. But you could just do all of them. And then at the end, I just stuck them in wherever to fill in any gaps that there was. And so that's what I'm doing here, is just kind of filling up areas that there wasn't enough flowers. And then I did a good fluff and called it good. And I did not glue in the flowers. You could if you're worried about them staying. And then for the hanger, I just took some hot glue. And then I glued it to the front, and then I glued it to the back as well. So here it is. I love it. It's exactly what I pictured, a big fluffy yellow wreath. You'll have to let me know what you think in the comments. This video is part of the Room by Room collaboration hosted each month by Devin at Freckled Mom, and this month's co-host is Maria at Artsy Cupcake. You will want to visit both of these ladies' channels. They have amazing DIYs and crafts, so be sure to hop over and see Devin at Freckled Mom DIY and Maria at Artsy Cupcake. You won't be disappointed. For this project, we're going to make a little banner that says spring. For this, you will need burlap, Mod Podge, poster stickers, or stencils, whichever you want to use, paint and brushes, twine, hot glue gun, and scissors. So the first thing I did was I cut out a piece of burlap, and I used Mod Podge and about a 50-50 Mod Podge water mixture and covered that on the burlap and let that dry. And then I took a piece of cardboard and cut out what I wanted each of my little letter banners to look like. And so here I am trying to find the center, and then doing the little dovetails at the end. And so I drew that out and then cut it out so that I had a stencil to cut out my burlap. And so then I cut out my burlap using my template that I had made, and I cut out 6 of them so that there was one for each letter in the word spring. And once I had them all cut out, I took some poster stickers I had. I stuck them on, and then using a yellow paint marker and traced around each letter, and then I just painted it in with a coordinating paint color. You see me here doing the yellows, and then I do the same thing for the blue and green for the letters as well. And I did 2 coats of paint on these just so that they stood out. And then once I had them all done and they had all dried, I took a piece of twine and figured out how long I wanted it, and then placed the letters where I wanted them. And then I just glued them to the twine and then just folded it over at the top so that it had a nice clean edge at the top. And I did the S, and then I did the G at the end, and then just sort of filled in the PRIN, as even as I could get them. It's not perfect, but when it's hanging, it's kind of hard to tell that they're not super perfect. So I think this turned out really fun and colorful and very much springy. You will have to let me know what you think in the comments. For this project, we're going to be making a couple of birdhouses. So you will need 2 small wooden birdhouses, decorative caps, paint, antique wax, hot glue gun, paintbrushes, and baby wipes. The first thing I did was tape off the birdhouses and give them each a coat of paint, excuse me. And this is the yellow, and then I did the blue. The blue is the summer sky, and the yellow is called canary yellow. And those are the colors that I painted it. And then once that had all dried, I took antique wax and I applied it with a baby wipe to the roof and the bottom and then the little perch. I'm not sure if this was any easier than with a brush. I did learn that if you go down, it doesn't catch on the baby wipe quite so much. You do end up with fuzzies that you have to take off at the end. So I don't know. You have to give it a try and see what you prefer with a brush or with this. There were some spots where you had to be pretty careful not to get the wax on the paint. And on those areas, you know, I just went in as close as I could with my fingernail, and then if you had to go in really close, I actually used a butter knife and put it in the baby wipe. You could also, again, grab a paintbrush. And so I gave both of the houses a good coat of the antique wax, and again, the roof, the floor, and on the perches. And then I took and did the same thing with the decorative caps. I ended up using 2, these come in a pack from Walmart, and I used 2 of the smaller ones and then 1 of the bigger ones. And then once everything had dried, I just took and glued on the decorative caps to the bottom. And I used the 2 smaller ones together, and then this is the larger one that I'm going to be putting on the blue birdhouse. And you'll see me here, this one stands up on its own. However, using those small decorative caps, it would not stand up on its own. So I had to come up with a solution because I had already had it glued on and everything. So I had these little wooden squares that I antique waxed and then glued them both to that. I would just suggest using the larger decorative caps for both. You know, you could stack 2 of the larger for one house and then 1 larger for the other house. And that should make it so that you don't have to do the square stand like I did. But either way, it'll be cute. So here they are. What do you think? Blue or yellow, which is your favorite? I just wanted to give a quick mention about my new glue gun. So super convenient. It has a battery inside of it, so you just charge it with a USB and it's ready to go. It's easy to transport and I have been very happy with it. I will link it down below in case you are in the market. I am calling this bird art for lack of a better word. You'll need a house frame, burlap, a bird shape where you can draw one, paint, antique wax, paintbrushes, a hot glue gun, decorative flower accent, and some colored paper or cardstock. First, I gave the frame a coat of chalk paint, hoping it would serve sort of like a primer. Nothing sticks to these frames. Then this is where I say cardstock or colored paper. I wanted to play with my watercolors, so I actually took some watercolor paper because my son was doing watercolors at the same time and just colored it blue for my background. But cardstock, colored paper, I mean, if you want to do this, great. You could even paint a piece of paper or something, just something to put in the back. And here's my little sidekick over here watercoloring. He mostly just likes to mix the colors and play in the water, but we got some artwork out of him today. Okay, so back to the project. So once I had the coat of the chalk paint, then I gave it a coat of this green. It's like this really pretty mint green. And then I drew out a bird. And this took me forever. I must have done several different birds, but I finally settled on this guy. And I cut it out. This is me trying to decide which one. So I made sure that it was going to fit in the frame, and then I traced it onto a piece of paper and cut that out just a little bit smaller because I knew I was going to have to trace around it. And I tried several different things before I found one I like, and I'll explain that here later. So the next step was I went ahead and put some antique wax on it just to give it that old feel. I wanted it to match with the birdhouses and some of the other projects that I did for my mantle. And so I went ahead and did that. I actually, in the bottom right hand corner, had gotten some glue on it and the paint peeled off. So I found this flower and put that decorative accent on. Then I put the watercolor paper in the, or on the back, the mat, and I glued on the burlap with hot glue all the way around. You could glue it onto a piece of cardboard and then put it in the frame rather than just gluing it to the frame. I don't know why I did it this way, but this is what I ended up doing. No one's going to see the back. Okay, so this is the thing. I had painted the bird on the glass and it did not look good. I had tried to paint it on the burlap and it ended up looking like a duck because I had to make its head so big because the beak looked funny. So I ended up taking my duck looking thing and cutting a bird shape out of it. And that is what I ended up going with. Then I glued on the accent, glued on the bird, and put the frame all back together. And there you go. There it is. What do you think? I know it's kind of different, but I'm actually pretty happy with the way it turned out. All right, here it is. Here's the reveal. This is how my mantle turned out. Lots of yellow. It's so bright. And then just a few splashes of blue and green, and then the rich, dark, antique wax tones. Overall, I am pretty happy with it, and it is just a bright spot in my day. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to watch my video. I hope you liked it. I would love to hear in the comments which is your favorite. If you enjoyed the video today, I hope you will consider subscribing, giving it a like, and sharing it with your friends. Okay, one last photo before we go because I just love kids' artwork. My 8-year-old added some pieces of art to the window, and it's just the best watching your kids enjoy the same things that you do. Thanks so much. Again, if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe.